Hi! Welcome to the Bionicle Inspiration Series, a series where we cover the builds of the community so you can get inspired for what you want to build in the future, or just inspire you in general, or just show you some cool mocks. I don't know, why are you here? Why are you here? Why do you watch these? You decide. Yeah. Alright, we are going to show you some cool stuff. Today's episode, we are going to be talking about, I was going to say covering, and then I said talking. I didn't pick a word. So you were going to be talking about CCBS Rahi. Now, this is two themes that I've done in the past, CCBS and Rahi. And then I was in my scientist lab and was combining potions and things. I was like, what am I going to do today? CCBS Rahi. It was also a request I got, so there you go. CCBS Rahi. For those of you who are like, what's a CCBS? CCBS stands for Character Creature Build System. Got it right this time. Character Creature Build System. Essentially what that means is it's the new build system that came into place when Lego was like, I don't like this Bionicle thing. Let's make Hero Factory. And then they're like, it's just the same thing as Bionicle. Let's revamp it. And then Hero Factory 2.0 came around and they're like, whoa, new build system. And people were like, whoa. But also people were like, ugh, what is this? This isn't Bionicle. And thus, the Great Bionicle War, 2000 and... what year was it? I'm just making lore up. Anyway, but... People do have a tendency to be like, see, my CCBS doesn't go with my Bionicle. Those are two separate entities and should never touch. I'm here today to show you that is hocus pocus, and why not try it? Give it a go. Maybe you'll have a fun time. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm not you. Anyway, first mock we have today, it is Jaga Revamp by Dylan Meaves. So what I really like about this mock is there's a lot of repetition going on, but in a really good way. You know, the legs are essentially just the same 3 pieces repeated 6 times. But that actually really works. And all that's just stemming off a very purely CCBS base, which looks to be sort of made out of a sort of like custom torso design, or even just a regular torso. Hard to tell. But it's a very simple, easy build. And it really just uses CCBS parts. Maybe it uses 1 or 2 other parts that aren't CCBS, but you can get majority of those pieces very easily nowadays with the modern CCBS selection. So, haha. Something that I also really like about this is how small it is. It's really simple, really quick to build. You know, it wouldn't take you that long. And if you're sort of limited on parts, or, you know, you just want to build something quick and easy and not take years to build something, maybe just building a quick little small simple Rahi of your favorite animal or insect or whatever would be a fun time. Might be cool. And I think this is a really good example of that. Really like what Dylan has done here with the eyes there, simply using the Hero Factory heads there, combining that with some of the eye Baraki parts to get that really cool looking multiple eye effect for a scorpion there. Looks great. Of course, for some of you who may not have realized, this is a revamp of the old Jaga set, a very old Bionicle set made in CCBS parts. Dylan's done this before with a few mocks, and I think that's a really clever idea, is kind of adding a modern flair to an old set that used a lot of older parts. Very creative, very clever. Another cool thing, he gets to use a lot of purple. Everyone loves purple. It's used to be a rare color. It's actually surprisingly common nowadays, to a degree. So it's nice to use a lot of purple here, because CCBS is a good selection of CCBS in purple. So that's awesome. But yeah, some cool stuff there. And a very clever tail design there. Really matches the original source material. And I can't stress that enough if you're building a Rahi, is if you're basing it off a real life or extinct creature, be sure to look up actual images and stuff and really try to match the overall sort of shape and other aspects. You know, like the tail very much looks like that actual piece on an actual scorpion. So be sure to actually match what the actual source material looks like. Really study it, and maybe there'll be a few things that really strike out at you, like, actually, that claw or that little talon on the animal looks a lot like this piece and might inspire you. Or it'll be a really good way to kind of gauge what the general shape of the animal looks like, and you can kind of go off of that. So I think that's perfect. Let us move on to the next mock, which is by Railblade, and it's called Jack in the Box. Now, this is a really simple build, but a really cute and clever build. Essentially, it's just a long line of Hero Factory bones, or CCBS bones, whatever you want to call them, with Hero Factory shells on them and a bunch of spikes everywhere. And in these photos, as we can see, it achieves a lot of really fun, creative, clever, cool poses. But it doesn't use a lot of parts. It's just a bunch of tires added on and a couple other things. Okay, there's a couple non-Hero Factory parts, like there's the Borok like weapon thing on the torso. But I actually think that works really well. You know, a lot of people say to me, they're like, hey Ben, like, cool stuff, but I don't have any Bionicle parts. I only have CCBS. What do I do? You know, surely you can find like one Bionicle part, or if not, and there my argument doesn't apply to you. But surely you've got just one or two little pieces that, may not be in a CCBS set or are just sitting there doing nothing, and you can add it into the mock like that. And this mock really only uses, that one Boros shell and those tire parts, and those system dishes. And, I mean, claws are in a lot of CCBS sets, so that is technically related in that regard. But I think that's very clever, is to use the majority of a build being CCBS, but adding one or two extra additional parts that are Bionicle or something, just for a little nice highlight. And definitely the shape and texture and everything of that part really matches everything else. Ultimately, I think some of the parts that are not CCBS in this are actually what really makes this mock. The face is very cute, clever, and kind of goofy, but it very much matches the sort of atmosphere that this mock and the personality that this mock has. Which is awesome and very well done by Railblade there. Also really cool how much posability and flexibility this mock has by just purely being a CCBS frame, essentially. So that's also another really cool thing that I definitely think is a pro of using CCBS, is that you're really able to just build a frame and then armor that, and then kind of the sky's the limit from there, really. You then detail that and whatever. Whereas that may not have been as possible with the sort of older build style. So definitely toy around when using CCBS with creating a frame and then sort of putting whatever you need on top of that. Because I think the build style really lends itself to that, and is essentially what's done here. Not quite. Also, tires as well are a really good way to kind of cover up a lot of gaps and stuff. It's a very different shape having those tires on that long single strand of Hero Factory bones compared to whether or not it did or didn't have the tires. So yeah, it creates a very nice texture there. Really unique. The final mock that we have today is by Patrick Biggs and is called Tyrant Lizard. Again, this is probably another example of a very much like a CCBS frame adding on stuff to it. Like if you look at the tail there, it is essentially just that. You can see the long line of Hero Factory bones there, and then on top of that, he's just added the Hero Factory shells on top of that. But then what I think is really clever is the whole base of that is system parts. And I sort of talked about this a bit before in the last mock, how there is that element of you can use a whole bunch of CCBS, but then on top of that, you can add one or two little extra highlights of old Bionicle parts or something else, just to add a little bit of flair and pizzazz, if you will. Looking at this mock, a lot of it is Hero Factory or CCBS, whatever you want to call it. You got a lot of the shells and the bones, and you've also got some of those finger pieces with claws and stuff, which like I've said, there is a sort of blurred line there. And then you also have things like those hinge parts, which kind of appear very much in both Hero Factory and CCBS. So there's some parts there where you could very much argue that it's a bit of a grey area, But then, of course, you've got a lot of the system parts, like some of the dishes and a lot of the mouth there is system parts. And then you've got like the Nuva shoulder there on the nose. So adding little tiny highlights of Bionicle and tiny nice highlights of system really complements this mock, which honestly, the majority of it is CCBS, but then just little bits of flair really improve it and create a very nice overall shape and a very nice overall look. And I've sort of said this already, but yeah, using CCBS is a very great way to have a very posable, awesome mock. There's not a lot of photos of this, but it obviously can achieve very nice amounts of poses just from looking at it. Also really cool, this mock sort of shows it, whereas the other ones don't. You can also very much easily have this, you could very easily put a rider on top of this mock. It would actually probably be as simple as just simply placing some Toa or some simple build on top of that there. Or you could just add a little like saddle up there somehow, that wouldn't be too difficult to make, or even just adding like a little cloth, like a saddle kind of thing. Another thing as well, you could have it pulling some sort of chariot or something. I guess the possibilities are endless. But again, I would say to definitely do your research and look up some reference images and look up some sort of fantasy, medieval, or actual real life examples of where people, where people get on top of animals in real life or in fantasy stuff and all that. See the ways that it can be a sort of mountable beast, because let's be honest, as cool as a Toa is, if it's riding a dinosaur, even cooler. So we got a bonus mock, and what I really like about this bonus mock, well, before I talk about it, this is a bonus mock by Logie Bear, and it's called Rahi Whips. So I think I've said this before in past shows, but looking at a lot of whip photos, whip stands for work in progress, for those of you who don't know. Looking at whip photos is often very helpful because you see an unfinished mock, and often that allows you to sort of get a little peek behind the scenes as to how people might have done a few things, because when they have the final version, they cover up all the intricate details and things like that. It's often really nice to take a closer look, if you will. Now, some of you will be like, this is on LDD, this doesn't count. Yeah, probably not. I don't know, that's up to you. Some people don't like seeing LDD mocks because they're like, it's not the same. But I think it's very clever. Using programs like LDD, which, for those of you who don't know, is Lego Digital Designer. You can go on lego.com. I think you still can. I know they don't do any updates for it anymore, but there are various building programs, whether it's LDraw or LDD, just look it up, you'll be able to find it, that allow you to build digitally. It also gives you access to almost every single piece, and you can change the color. As you can see here, those Hero Factory headpieces in trans blue do not exist, and so there's a whole bunch of parts here that don't exist in those colors. But using LDD allows you to have an unlimited color palette and unlimited pieces, which could be very beneficial. And a lot of people tend to build stuff on LDD just as a sort of draft, and then actually build it in person, because there you have a lot more freedom in terms of parts and all that sort of stuff. So maybe LDD is something you should try out if you haven't, or give it another go if you haven't touched it in a while. But what I like about this, so this Scorpion, just quickly talking about this, as Luke Skywalker would say, no, I'm pretty sure Luke said it, there's more than one way to skin a womp rat. Or did Anakin say that? I don't remember. But we saw the Scorpion design from before. Here it is once again. And then here it is next to this Rahi. So there's a lot of different techniques. You know, this leg design is very different, but again, very simple Hero Factory CCBS bone pieces. The actual tail is very cool. It's a lot bigger this time. It uses a different blade there for the top. And also the talons at the front there use some very different things. And are also in purple, which is a really interesting take. So it'd be interesting to see where that goes. And I think that's really cool. You know, a lot of people I've seen before, they're like, oh man, I was going to build a Falcon or something, and someone else builds it. And they're like, oh, I guess I can't build it now. It's like, well, why not? Why not do it your way, you know? Because there's always a different way to do it. And there's always a really cool way to do it that maybe someone else hasn't tried. So see what you can do, you know? And also now looking at this sort of Wasp bee guy, who looks fantastic, by the way. Using LDD allows you to use some very, very cool part usages, which just wouldn't be possible in real life. Like those wings being in trans clear, which obviously don't exist. But as a very cool part use. So if one day LEGO does happen to make those pieces in trans clear, save that and put it on a BMOC in real life, because it works very well here. So I think that's definitely a pro of using LDDs. You can get some awesome part usages. But that's about it, I think. So a bit more of a crazier episode than normal. But I did some very cool concepts of really toying with the overall frame of a mock and then layering on top of that, making sure to look at real life images, and also the various possibilities of CCBS, as well as sort of adding little additional touches with some system and some old Bionicle parts there. Definitely helps out. So that's about it. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to check the links in the description for the mocks that you saw in today's episode, and check out some of the other things they've built, because they are phenomenal builders. Also, if you have a suggestion for a future theme for the episode, leave it in a comment below, or also check the description, because in there will be links to my social media where you can send me a message and be like, Ben, I want to see this theme for an episode, or I want to see this mock in an episode, or my mock in an episode, whatever. Send me a message and I'll put it in the backlog, and one day you will see your mock on the show. Huzzah! So that's about it. Hope you got inspired. Let me know if you did. Let me know what you're building, how it's going, all that jazz. I'm interested. Happy building. See you in the future. Bye, guys.